Haribol, namaste everyone. Welcome to Yoga Kirtan Hawaii's Soul Journey, a journey of self-discovery program tonight. And sorry I'm a few minutes late getting started. Please accept my apologies. And so today actually is a very special day. It's known as Radhastami, or the appearance day of Srimati Radharani. And so tonight's program I'm going to, for my yoga wisdom talk, I'll actually talk about Srimati Radharani and who she is and why we celebrate her appearance in this world. And so before I start though, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Maha Bhagavat Das, and Yoga Kirtan Hawaii. We can find us at yogakirtanhawaii.com, and obviously on Facebook. And we also have Instagram. Yoga Kirtan Hawaii is based on Oahu, Hawaii, and we offer programs, classes, and events, including Hatha Yoga, Kirtan, meditation classes, and this is getting a bit old. I make this joke every time, and vegan dinners, but there isn't any vegan dinners right now. And based on today's latest lockdown order, there won't be any vegan dinners for quite a while. So anyway, all our events are free or donation based, and we're holding regular events on Facebook Live. You can visit the Facebook page for more information. There's generally 1 or 2 kirtans every day, and tonight there's going to be another couple of kirtans, one at 8 p.m. Hawaii time and one at 9 p.m. Hawaii time. So, you're welcome to stay and watch those. So Yoga Kirtan Hawaii is the outreach arm of an organization called the Science of Identity Foundation. And the foundation was founded by my spiritual master, Jagaguru Siddhasarupananda Paramahansa, who's the disciple of His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. And so they are coming, my spiritual master and his spiritual master and his spiritual master before him, are coming in a long line of spiritual teachers known as the Brahma Madhva Gauriya Sampradaya. And a Sampradaya refers to a lineage or tradition. And this Sampradaya or tradition, it began with the Supreme Person himself. And it was, so it's a very ancient tradition of these yoga wisdom teachings and these yoga processes of kirtan and meditation being handed down from spiritual master or spiritual teacher to their disciple and this or student. And these teachings are very carefully handed down to the present day. So the program tonight, we're going to be doing some kirtan, and then after that we'll have the class or yoga wisdom talk that I'm going to give, as I mentioned, on Srimati Radharani. And then we'll follow it just by a little bit of kirtan. And then, so we should be done around 8 or 8:10. And as I mentioned, there'll be another kirtan going live on Yoga Kirtan Hawaii's Facebook page at around 8 p.m. So we're going to do some kirtan now, and if you haven't tuned in before, or you don't know what kirtan is the chanting of transcendental sound vibrations or spiritual sound vibrations or sacred sounds, and chanting of mantras. So a mantra is a Sanskrit word, and it refers to man, which refers to the mind, and tra means to draw away. So the mantra draws our mind away from this temporary material dimension and takes our mind to the spiritual dimension. So the mantras are either the names of God or words spoken by God or words about God. And these mantras, these sacred sound vibrations, they're like a lifeline. So here we are, we're in the material world, and these transcendental sound vibrations are coming down through the disciplic succession, through the lineage or sampradaya that I spoke about. and they're coming down and they're being handed to us, and we can actually grab hold of them or take shelter in them, rest in them, and in these spiritual sound vibrations, these mantras can actually transport us to the spiritual world, which is known as Vaikuntha, the world of no anxiety. This is the meaning of the word Vaikuntha, the place of no anxiety. So we're going to be chanting some different mantras, Gopala, Govinda, Rama, Madana Mohana, and in honor of Srimati Radharani, we'll chant Radharani Shamasunda. So Kirtan is done in a call and response way. A person leads, we all listen, then we respond. And my wife, Radhisham Dasi, she has a much nicer voice than my voice. My voice is all kind of crackling, and I'm not quite sure what's going on with it, but something's going on. So anyway, we'll have... she has a very angelic voice, actually. On Facebook Live, somebody the other night was going, "Oh, you sound like an angel." So anyway, so I'm probably embarrassing her right now. Anyway, so my wife, Radhisham Dasi, she'll lead the Kirtan, and then I'll follow, and you can follow along with me. And as I mentioned, that this Kirtan can actually transport us to the spiritual world. And so right now we're all in a time of great anxiety. Here in Oahu, there's like hundreds of new cases of COVID-19 every day. Yeah, come on. And then the hospitals are filling up and so on and so forth. So anyway, let's put all that aside, not worry about that. Just focus on these transcendental sound vibrations. Rest in them, take shelter in them, and bring them within your heart and mind, and just relax and listen to the sound. So if you find your mind beginning to wander, just bring it back to the sound vibrations, to the sacred mantras.
Namaste, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're going to sing Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana. I forgot to bring the chords. Oh well. Basic chords. Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana. Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana. So we'll each sing it twice, and then it's the next turn. So Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana. Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana. Oh, here it is. Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana. speak for?
30 minutes.
And we'll have Kirtan after that.
Yep, 10 minutes. So, namaste. Thank you for tuning in and watching and participating, chanting with us, engaging in Kirtan. So before speaking, first I'd like to offer my respects unto my spiritual teacher, Jagadguru, Siddhasarupananda, Paramahansa, who's taught me everything that I know about yoga wisdom, and has very kindly assisted me throughout my life in developing my understanding of yoga wisdom. So as I mentioned, today is a very special day, and it's the appearance day of Srimati Radharani, and it's known as Radhastami. Astami means appearance celebration, and Radha is so Srimati Radharani is a completely spiritual personality, and she's the feminine aspect of the Supreme. So she's an expansion of the Supreme Person, God, and she's his topmost lover and devotee. She's known as the Hladini Shakti, or the pleasure potency of God. So, to be, so that was, if you're not familiar with these ideas that I just conveyed, you might be like going, wow, what is he talking about? So how is there a feminine aspect of God, and she has a name, Radha, and we even celebrate her appearance day. So this may be a little difficult for us to understand, what the topmost lover and devotee of God is, and that she's a beautiful woman, a pleasure potency. So anyway, these can be difficult ideas to understand. So we need to be able to understand that. We need to be able to understand what is the ultimate reality. This material world that we're living within is a temporary manifestation. It is not permanent, ultimate reality. So the yoga wisdom, we learn about who is the source of this material world, and of the spiritual world. Who is the ultimate reality, the absolute truth. And so this information is received, through the disciplic succession of realized great souls, spiritual teachers, spiritual masters, and it's received also through the Vedic literatures, the ancient yoga texts, in particular the Srimad Bhagavatam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which I give classes on here at Yoga Kirtan, Hawaii. And so to understand, we have some understanding of the material world, but essentially we really have no knowledge, or very limited knowledge or information about the spiritual world, or rather I should say most people have very limited information or realization or understanding of what the spiritual world is, or what spirit is, and what matter is, and what is the distinction between the two of them. And so to understand who is Srimati Radharani, first we need to have a little bit of understanding of who we actually are, who I am, who you are. So we need to, seek out answers to this question of who am I? This is actually the beginning of spiritual life, when somebody begins to ponder, well, what is the meaning of life? Who am I? Why am I here? Why am I suffering? Why am I suffering? Miseries caused by my own body and mind. Why am I suffering from miseries caused by other living entities? Why am I experiencing suffering in the form of natural and social forces? So we begin to make inquiry into the absolute truth. As it's stated in a essential Vedic literature, the Vedanta Sutra, which means Vedanta means the end of all knowledge. The first shloka or verse is Om Athato Brahma Jignasa. So Athato means now. Now is the time. Jignasa means inquiry, and Brahma means absolute truth. So now is the time. So why is it now? Because we're in the human form of life. In other forms of life, there's no capability to make inquiry into the absolute truth, into what is the meaning in life. Right? The animal species and the aquatics and the plants and trees and so on, they're not able to make this inquiry. They just live their life basically essentially trying to survive, right? Struggle for existence, and trying to get enough to eat, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. This is basically animal life. And in human life, we have the opportunity to go beyond this eating, sleeping, mating, and defending business, and actually start to inquire, what is the meaning of life? Who am I? Why am I here? What is the purpose of life? Why am I suffering? We can ask these different questions and seek out the answers. And so to understand God and His pleasure potency, Srimati Radharani, His consort, His intimate lover, first of all we have to understand, well, who am I? Right? Who am I? Most people, if I ask you, well, who are you? They'll say, well, I'm, in my case, I'd say, if you were to ask me, well, who are you? I'd say, well, I'm, my name is Mahabharata Das, or Mark, and, I'm a 63-year-old man, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I have 3 children, and I have a particular job or occupation, business person, accountant, and I'm a certain height, 5'10", I weigh a certain amount, my eyes are a certain color, and so on and so forth. So what am I doing? I'm defining who I am based upon my material body and what my material body does. But actually, you are not this material body. We're not this temporary material body, this body made of flesh and blood and bones and brains and whatever else is inside, like the skin. And the skin is very much like a leather bag holding a bunch of ingredients in there. And this body is temporary. At most we live, 70, 80, 90 years, maybe up to 100. But of course, if you're hanging around until you're that age, life generally becomes very difficult. So anyway, but we're not this body. We're actually spiritual in essence. We are what's known as an Atma, or a spiritual spark. And so the presence of the soul is seen within the body. Like the body is dead matter, and it comes to life when there is a soul or an Atma or a spiritual spark within the body. And when the Atma or the self, you actually leave the body, this is called death. The body dies, it immediately starts to break down. But while you, the soul, are present within the body, then the body goes through all the functions of life. Everything's working, it's all it's all working. It's like a well-honed machine. And, so not only do we have this gross physical body composed of, earth and water and chemicals and so on that you can see and touch and feel, you also have a subtle body. This is the mind and the intelligence and false ego, the ahankara, being the sense that I am this body, that this identification that we have with our temporary material body. We think that this is me, and everything in relation to me is mine. So me and mine, this is how in the material world we view things. I have my body and everything in connection with it is mine. And so the mind is like, our thoughts and feelings. We have the tendency to think, to will, to desire. We have the ability in our intelligence, the ability to analyze. And so the subtle body, the mind, it's like the software, that lets us use the body. But the mind and the intelligence and the ahankara, the false ego, are all very fine. They're subtle material energy. You can't see it. You can't analyze it with your gross physical senses. You can't use a microphone to see it, a microscope or a telescope or even just your eyes to see it. You can't see the mind. But we all know the mind is there, but it's subtle material energy. So you, the Atma, the spirit soul, are covered by a subtle material body and a gross physical body. And so the Vedic aphorism is Aham Brahmasmi, I'm spirit soul. So while you are spiritual in essence, but you are not the Supreme Spirit, rather you are a part and parcel of the Supreme, a spiritual spark. So it is like the Supreme is like a fire, and we are like sparks coming from this fire, emanating from the fire. Or another analogy is the sun and the sun's rays, or the sun's particles of sunshine. So we are, coming from the great source. Like in the analogy of the sun, we're like a particle of sunshine emanating from the sun. And so in that sense, you can't separate the spark from the fire, or you can't separate the sun's rays from the sun. So similarly, we are spiritual in essence, and we are emanating from the Supreme Spirit. So we are spiritual in essence, just as the Supreme Spirit, the Supreme Person, is spiritual in essence. So we have the same qualities, but we are minute. Whereas the Supreme Person, God, is great. We are small. He is great. So we are the dominated part and parcel. We're not in control. It's like, well, what am I doing in this body? Well, we were put in here. Right? We're not in control. We don't get to choose. Of course, we have, this is a bit of a deep topic, and I won't go into it too much, but as a result of our desires and our actions, our desires and our karma, which is action and reaction, we get given a particular body, and in order with which to attempt to fulfill our desires and to reap the results of our past actions. So we're dominated, we're conditioned by this body. The very body we have, it imposes conditioning upon us. It's conditional. We have to walk in a certain way. We have to eat certain amounts of food, we have to go to the bathroom, we have to, we're subject to all kinds of conditions as a result of having this material body. And everybody's material body is a little bit different, so we all have our own different kind of conditioning. We're conditioned by the, by the conditions prevailing in the world or in our neighborhood, right? So we're conditioned. We're not in control. We're not the controller. Rather, we are controlled and dominated by all these natural and social forces and by the conditions of our own body. So we're spiritual in essence. I'm not the Supreme Spirit. Rather, I'm a minute spiritual spark coming from the Supreme Spirit. I'm the dominated part and parcel. I'm controlled by material nature. I'm controlled by forces greater than me. And so then, understanding my true identity as spiritual in essence, and that I'm not the Supreme Spirit, but rather I'm the dominated part and parcel of the Supreme. I'm spiritual in essence, but I'm not the Supreme Spirit. So then the question becomes, well, what is my function? I'm understanding my essence as spirit. I'm understanding my position as the minute spiritual spark, part and parcel of the Supreme, but I'm not the Supreme. So then the question is, well, what is my function? And so the answer is that your function is to serve. Like it's part of your eternal nature. Everyone is serving. In this material world, we serve our boss, we serve our parents, we serve our spouse, we serve our children, and they're all simultaneously serving us in some way. We serve society. Like this natural tendency to serve is there. It's actually known as Sanatana Dhamma. So Dhamma is function, and Sanatana means eternal. So it is our eternal nature is to serve, just like the Sanatana Dhamma of water is wetness. So our Sanatana Dhamma is service. In this material world, we are misdirecting our service. We are misdirecting it to serving our senses and serving the senses of others. But the true place where we should place our serving tendency is onto the Supreme Person. So not only is our function to render service, but as spiritual sparks, our actual nature is to love. To love and be loved is the natural tendency of the soul. In fact, we're like little love particles. And unfortunately, sometimes this loving nature is in this material world is covered, and sometimes some people don't really manifest love. They manifest opposite qualities. But these opposite qualities of lust and so on are actually a perversion or of our natural loving tendency. So once we understand our true identity, that I'm spiritual in essence, that I'm not this temporary material body, that this temporary material world is not my home, it's not where I really should live and spend my time. It's not the goal of life is not to accumulate a whole bunch of money and stuff and houses and cars and boats and airplanes or whatever else we may be wanting to acquire, because these things are temporary. They won't make you happy. They may give you some satisfaction for a short period of time, but then the spiritual craving you have within you, the desire for more, will manifest and you'll become unhappy. So the only way you will actually satisfy this internal craving for happiness is by actually linking up in yoga or union with the Supreme Person. So in this world, in this material world, we have different relationships. We have relationships with our spouse, we have relationships with our parents, we have relationships with our children. And it's like this material world is actually a reflection of the spiritual world. So in the spiritual world, it's not a place where everyone just sits around and does nothing. Or it's not like in the spiritual world, it's a world of activity. We are eternally an individual. And in the spiritual world, we remain an eternal individual. It's not when we become self-realized that we cease to exist as an individual, or that we merge into an ocean of light. You know, it is possible to merge into the ocean of light, but only temporarily. You may forget for some time your individual existence, but nonetheless you remain an individual. And so the individuals, as an individual, we're active. We desire to love and be loved, to interact with others. We get very lonely and depressed if you're all on your own. Right? No one likes to be alone all the time. Everybody likes to relate with someone. You know, if you don't like people, well, you'll get a cat or a dog, you know, but you're always relating. So this is the natural tendency of the soul. And so in this temporary material world, we enter into temporary relationships, and all these relationships will come to an end. All of them, every one of them. They all come to an end, either when the other person dies or when I die. You know, but in the spiritual world, which is a world of eternity, our relationships are eternal. So in the difference between, or some of the differences between relationships in this world and relationships in the spiritual world, you know, and as I mentioned already, in the spiritual world, the relationships are eternal, whereas in this world, they're very temporary and last only as long as the body lasts. In the spiritual world, relationships are full of joy and happiness. You know, the Sanskrit word is ananda, bliss, blissfulness. You know, in this material world, relationships, you know, there may be some happiness that we experience. There may even be some short blissfulness for a period of time. But actually, all relationships have built within them, you know, pain and suffering. You know, as I mentioned already, death is built into every relationship. The end, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the only real question is, like, generally at the beginning, it's kind of like, you know, generally everyone's on their best behavior and being nice to each other. In the middle, things start to go downhill a little bit, and we don't know how long the middle will be. And then there is the end, where it ends. You know, and this ending is very painful. Generally speaking, it's painful. We don't want it to end, but it does end. You know, so in these relationships in this world, the pain is built in there. So in the spiritual world, relationships are based on true spiritual unconditional love. So unconditional love means I love you regardless of whether you love me, or whether you reciprocate my love, or whether you do what I want you to do. In the spiritual world, it's unconditional love, just an outpouring of love towards others, right? Towards God and towards his parts and parcels, towards Krishna. Krishna is God. Krishna means the all-attractive person, the supreme person. Krishna is all-attractive. He is so beautiful and so kind and wonderful, and he wants us to love him, and he reciprocates our love. So we have these wonderful loving relationships based on unconditional love. But in this world, our relationships, this natural loving tendency of the soul becomes converted into lust or kama, K-A-M-A. And I only give my love if it's reciprocated, or if I get what I want from the relationship. You know, so many relationships go downhill, and where it becomes like, oh, you're just not satisfying me anymore. I don't love you anymore. You're just not. You're not giving me what I want. This is like the painful experience of so many people in their relationships with others. Very painful. So the spiritual world is not like this. It's just unconditional love. And this world is very conditional, and it comes to an end. So actually, when I give up my self-centered desires for my own happiness, then paradoxically, I actually experience great happiness. Even in this world, we're aware of this, that, a selfish person who's only interested in themselves, generally they're not very happy. But if they engage in some kind of charitable act or try to help someone who needs some help, then actually we feel like this little sense of having done the right thing. We feel kind of that this was a good thing that I did. We derive some satisfaction and happiness from doing so. So when we become actually full of unconditional love for others, then we become paradoxically, so even though we're not concerned about our own happiness, actually we become very happy, full of joy and blissfulness. So we can't compare these loving relationships of the spiritual world, our relationships with God and our relationship with others in the spiritual world, with material relationships. There's no comparison. We can sort of get some glimpses into it, but there's actually no comparison. So in particular in this world, we can't compare our relationships of so-called love. I love a woman, or she loves me, and and essentially these loving relationships, generally they're based upon sex, material sex, and so we can't compare these material, mundane relationships based on lust and sex in this material world to the spiritual, loving relationships within the spiritual world. Sorry, I meant to say material world. We can't. These relationships of lust and sex and so on and so forth in the material world, we can't compare them to the relationships in the spiritual world. And most particularly, we can't compare it to the loving relationship between Srimati Radharani and Lord Krishna. Krishna is the supreme, all-attractive person. He's known as Govinda and Gopala. He satisfies the senses of everybody. So in the spiritual world, the eternal spirit soul, you or I, we can enter into the spiritual world, and we can have a loving relationship with the Supreme Person, Krishna. And we can have one or other different moods or loving relationship with the Supreme Person. This is called in Sanskrit a rasa, or a flavor. And so there's Santa rasa, which is the mood of neutrality, of awe and reverence, and just feeling great satisfaction and happiness and blissfulness just to be in the presence of God. There's dasya, or servitude, where we can serve God as in various ways as His servant. There is Sakya relationship, which means friendship. I can be friends. I can actually be an intimate friend with Krishna, the Supreme Person. There's Vatsalya, or parenthood. And then Madhura Rasa, which is to be a consort or lover. So we, the minute individual spirit souls, can have a loving relationship with Krishna, the Supreme Person, in one of these moods. But Krishna's supreme lover, his loving consort, is Srimati Radharani. She is Krishna's girlfriend. And all the relationships in the spiritual world, and what is known as Goloka Vrindavan, they all revolve around and are in support of Krishna's loving relationship with Srimati Radharani. So Radharani is the feminine aspect of Godhead. She's the internal pleasure potency of Krishna, what's known as Lahadini Shakti, or the blissful energy, or the power of divine love of Krishna. So Krishna appeared in Vrindavan, India, about approximately 5,000 years ago, and all his eternal associates, his friends, his elder brother, Lord Balaram, appear along with him. You know, they come with him to this material world. So Vrindavan in India is like a replica of the spiritual world. So Krishna loves us, and he comes to this material world to demonstrate his pastimes and his loving relationships with his devotees, so that we can learn about the spiritual world. And so just as Krishna's friends and associates and parents accompany him when he appears in this material world, so also does Srimati Radharani. And today we are celebrating her appearance. So Radharani is the queen of the gopis, the milkmaids of Vrindavan, and she has complete love and devotion for Krishna. And in fact, Radharani has so much love for Krishna that Krishna himself desires to taste it. He sees how much happiness and blissfulness and pleasure that Radharani is deriving from her love for him, that he wants to understand this love. He wants to taste it. He wants to experience it for himself. So Lord Krishna, with this desire, he appeared in Navadvip, India, which is in Bengal, West Bengal. And he incarnated or appeared as Lord Chaitanya approximately 500 years ago. And Lord Chaitanya is known as Gauranga, the golden-limbed one. He is Krishna himself, covered in the loving mood and the golden complexion of Srimati Radharani. So I've kind of, this talk tonight is a little bit different from my usual yoga wisdom talk. And, these are definitely more advanced topics of yoga wisdom. And I hope you've been able to perhaps understand them some if you're new to these ideas. And, to understand and learn more about the spiritual relationships of the spiritual world, about Lord Shri Krishna and Srimati Radharani. I encourage you, please, engage in the process of Kirtan. Kirtan, as I mentioned at the start of tonight's program, is a spiritual sound vibration, these mantras coming from the spiritual world. And these mantras, these sacred sounds, will actually cleanse your heart and mind, and they will help you to realize your true spiritual identity. So in addition to this practical process of chanting these wonderful sacred sounds, these transcendental sound vibrations, please also attend our yoga wisdom classes to learn more. And so next this Sunday, actually, I'm going to be giving a Bhagavad Gita class at Yoga Kirtan, Hawaii. Starts at 7 p.m. Next Tuesday, on the first Tuesday of the month, I'll be giving my wife and I will be giving an experience meditation program. And on the fourth Tuesday of each, or the last Tuesday of each month, there's the Soul Wisdom class. So all these classes, these yoga wisdom classes, are on Facebook Live. I invite you to please attend. And you can see the schedule of events at the Yoga Kirtan Hawaii Facebook page and website for dates and times for additional kirtans. So thank you for listening. We're going to do a little bit more kirtan now. And as I mentioned, there's more Facebook Live kirtans going on. There's another one starting soon, and there's another one at 9 p.m. So, Haribol, Namaste.
everyone. Yeah, we'll just chant for a few minutes. We'll chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra in honor of Srimati Radharani. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Srimati Radharani. Thank you so much everyone for coming. Hope you have a nice evening and nice rest of the week.
Haribol, namaste.
Hari Hari Bol.